So this meeting is going to be recorded, just to let you know, and we are going to post it onto the website, our ASIS website, after this event. Okay. So welcome everyone. My name is Ariel and I am the chair of ASIS this semester. Tonight's event is called What I Wish I Had Known. It's an opportunity for you to hear from former ASIS executive committee members and current or soon to be iSchool alumni. And you will learn what pointers they wish they had known when they first started the program. Okay, next slide, please. So this is our first ASIS event this semester. Many of you are currently members of ASIS, but some of you may not know what ASIS is. So ASIS is an international professional organization for the information sciences. Members include librarians, academics, computer scientists, engineers, and more. ASIS leans towards technical information, science, and research. At our SJSU ASIS student chapter, we strive to provide events and opportunities for students to connect with other students of similar interests and professionals. Okay, next slide. All right, so now our programming director, Lauren Davidson, who arranged this whole event, is going to have a fun icebreaker for us. Lauren?
So we thought it would be fun to do a little Padlet. There should be a link in the chat or coming into the chat. So you will just click on the link and it'll take you to this Padlet. And over here in the corner, there's a little plus sign. And you click on it and you can add something that you wish you had known, advice that you wish you could tell your younger self, just any kind of advice that you would like to share with others, and it's anonymous, so feel free to write whatever you want. And as you can see, it'll start popping up also on the screen, so you can see what other people advice they wish they could tell themselves or tell you. Scholarship applications, those are very important. There's some coming up, by the way. Lots of different scholarships. And keep reading. I'm sure we all love books. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to go to new events, try new things.
I wish I could remember where things were located on the SJSU website easily. I still wish I knew. For an introvert, you're going to be a kick-ass public speaker. Very true.
A CV. Okay, so I'll give you a couple more seconds. And then you can feel free to add things later after the event. Look at some of these, take a screenshot so you can remind yourself later. Okay. That was nice. So I think we're going to go back to our presentation. And again, feel free to keep adding things and looking at it later. I'll move to the next slide.
Okay, so Now it's time to meet our panelists. So hello, panelists. Please introduce yourselves and give us a brief bio about who you are, your current career path, and your connection to the iSchool. And tell us one thing you wish you could tell your younger self. So let's start with Violet.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Violet. I am in my final semester at the iSchool, so I'm doing the e-portfolio right now. I'm right in the thick of it. And I am a supervising librarian for the Humboldt County Library, which is a small public library system up in Northern California. And advice for my younger self, I think probably the main thing would be not to get hung up on perfectionism, not let that get in the way of enjoying the program and enjoying your life. It's, reading through everybody's Padlet responses. It's okay to make mistakes and ask questions. And I wish that I would have known that earlier.
Okay, thank you. And next we will hear from Brittany.
Hey everyone, I am a recent grad of the iSchool. I graduated in December 2020, and I'm a former ASIS member too, or a current ASIS member, but I used to serve on the board as well. So it's nice to see faces again. Right now, I am still in 2 paraprofessional roles, and I'm actually interviewing for a couple of professional librarian roles right now. So really what I'm bringing to the table is that I still kind of have, dreams about the e-portfolio because it's still fresh in my mind. And I am hopefully trying to land a professional career track in academic librarianship or adult services public librarianship. So those are the 2 paths I'm looking at right now. And advice for my younger self, especially in the iSchool, I think I would tell myself to not be afraid to try new things. I think I was really hesitant at first, and so I joined student groups later on and in my career there, and I wish I had started it sooner.
Excellent, thank you so much. And finally, we have Stephanie.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Akau. It's very nice to be here with you all tonight, so thanks to the board for inviting me. I'm an archivist in the music division at the Library of Congress, and I started working here in July 2019. I graduated from San Jose State in May 2019, so I moved here just a few months after. I was on the ASIST board for 2.5 years as a secretary treasurer, and I was a content editor for the Student Research Journal. I think if I could tell my younger self something, it would be that my music degrees will actually come in handy and maybe procrastinate a little bit less.
Excellent. Thank you so much, you guys, and welcome. All right, so I believe now we will start off with some questions.
Great. So the first question we have for you guys tonight is, do you have any suggestions for keeping track of the e-portfolio competencies, or just any general tips for tackling the e-portfolio, things we should do along the way, things like that?
Would you like me to start?
Sure.
In that order? Okay. So I am, like I said, I'm doing the e-portfolio right now. And one of the super helpful things has been using that student success planner that they give you in Info 203. That's really helpful for keeping track of your evidence along the way, and also keeping track of your courses, remembering what you took, and what competencies those matched. But the biggest kind of surprise for me was how many classes I didn't take them specifically for that competency, but there was evidence I could apply. So, it might have said that it was something you could do for A and D, but it turns out it's got a great project for E. So really just looking at all of your assignments on their own and mapping those kind of in addition to the info that the school is giving you, I think is really helpful. And then Stephanie's advice to not procrastinate. I really didn't want to think about it until this semester. But definitely the sooner you start thinking about it, the better.
Are we going kind of in the same order? Yeah, is that?
Yeah, that works.
piggybacking off of that, yeah, I definitely procrastinated on a couple of the competencies, so don't advise doing that. But one of the biggest tips that I think I started a little too late, and I wish I had started earlier, like in my first semester of iSchool, would be creating, I wish I had created folders kind of like the student success planner, but when I saw that, I just looked at that like, oh my God, this is a lot. So I just kind of didn't look at it again. But I ended up doing my own version of that. And so I kind of just wished from the very beginning that I had folders for each of the competencies laid out. And at the either in the middle of or at the end of each semester, I just reviewed the coursework. I reviewed some major projects, papers, and then I wished I had just kind of dumped those into the folders that corresponded with that competency. I think that would have saved me a lot of searching in the end, trying to find something that would fulfill that as evidence. And I also really wish that I had started jotting down notes about some of my professional work that I've done, projects that I worked for in the libraries at the time that I was working at, because trying to rack my brain later on, I found it pretty difficult. So I wish that I kind of journaled that stuff and said, hey, this could maybe serve as evidence for a certain competency. So whenever you have maybe that gut feeling that it could be something that is substantial, writing that down.
Yeah, like Brittany and Violet said, start immediately and save. I'm an archivist, sorry, I have to say this, but save everything in multiple places because you just don't know when your computer's gonna die. And a couple of things, like I don't know if you all are still using WordPress for Info 200, but I found out you are. Okay, I found out the hard way that that account is not accessible like more than a year and a half after you're enrolled in the class. So make sure that you save all your blog posts, because I didn't and wish that I had. So definitely save those. And because of how classes are structured around our required classes at San Jose State, I ended up using my assignments from those required 200, 202, 203. Is that it? I can't remember. Anyway, 204 classes, like a lot more than I anticipated. And also like take screenshots of any LibGuides, websites, or web archives you create, because again, you don't know if you're going to be able to access those accounts, and like say something in life happens and you have to delay a semester to, you may not be able to get to it when you're finally doing your e-portfolio. Let's see, I used Trello when I was compiling everything. I don't know if you guys know about Trello, but it's a productivity tool that lets you like group ideas or actions together, and it looks like a giant wall with post-it notes, but they call them boards. So I created a board for each competency with the description of each competency, and then I would add a card for each assignment that would fit the different parts of that competency, so I could see it all laid out, because you're not allowed usually to use assignments more than 3 times for different competencies. So I could see if I had or hadn't used one. And then it feels really good because when each competency got approved, I archived the board. So some immediate gratification with Trello. So I would recommend that.
Okay, and now for the next question.
Thank you so much for that. And also we have a few basic questions, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I don't know if you already are, but and we'll make sure to have time at the end to answer those. So were you aware that iSchool students may have access to free resources like LinkedIn Learning and Coursera? If so, which ones were your favorite, and which ones do you wish you still had access to, or maybe you loved it so much you bought an account and still have access to it?
Yeah, so the huge one for me was the Microsoft Office suite. I don't know if everybody knows that, but there's all kinds of software downloads that you can get from the SJSU site as a student. So I'm, still using the Microsoft Office stuff. I think there's Adobe. So a lot of like really expensive software that you can take advantage of as a student. I just discovered the LinkedIn Learning actually because of the challenge that ASIS is doing. So I got to kind of check that out. And what's really exciting is my library is actually getting that my public library. So once I graduate, I'll be able to keep learning that way too. but definitely check out the software downloads, and then just any student discounts. Like if the Spotify's got a great student discount. So that's definitely, sometimes being an online student, you don't feel like you're a real student, but you very much are. So definitely take advantage of student discounts.
That's so true. I love the student discounts, and that's what I miss probably the most because mine's about to end. Like my Spotify account is saying you have to re-verify, and I'm like, damn it, I'm not a student anymore. So I'm going to miss that. And one thing unfortunately I didn't know too much about like LinkedIn Learning while I was in iSchool. But the things that I did take advantage of were the career center like applications and Handshake. It wasn't until my last year in the iSchool that I really started trying to lay out a career path for myself and trying to see if I could apply for certain things if I was approaching my graduation date. So I really utilized, I don't know if you guys know about VMock that the school provides. That is a resume editing software, which is really great. It was a great tool to have that was, free while being a student. So I wish I still had access to that. And then still having the ASIS membership, which I'm going to renew because they also have really cool job searching tools. And since that's kind of the phase I'm at in my career of just trying to find something that's going to either be another stepping stone or hopefully a career building path, I'm finding that those resume help and job searching tools are the ones that are super helpful for me.
Yeah, highly recommend the Career Center for sure. They'll look over your resume and give you really good feedback. I don't know that we had access to this when I was at San Jose State, or if it was just like at the very end of my program and I was kind of focused on finishing, but I did take some of the Linda classes for my previous position. I took the Excel courses because I was working with a lot of circulation data because I was in access services in an academic library. And those were really helpful. And I still use what I learned from that in my job now, working with spreadsheets to create finding aids. And I also just started a course in Linda on beginning Python that I've really liked. And the Library of Congress has, like sort of this professional development courses, but I haven't found them to be as like engaging as the Linda courses, because the Linda courses will let you download things, to follow along and actually do the stuff with the instructor, whereas our professional development, at least that I've encountered, does not have that. So that's one advantage. Take advantage of it while you can. And then let's see. Oh, I saw in the chat that someone bought Microsoft Office for $30. Yeah, do that now, because it turns out 2 years after you graduate, your account doesn't work. Your student account doesn't work for Microsoft Office. So get it now when it's cheap.
All right, thank you for that great advice. I'm going to go buy it after this. All right, and we have another question. And for anyone who just joined us, if you have any questions for our panelists, please put them in the chat and we will have time at the end to answer your questions.
Hi again, everybody. My name is Savannah. Piggyback on the other one. You know that for Coursera, you have a free class through San Jose State. I took one class. I took one of the copyright. It was really good, very extensive, and you do get a certificate. So be sure to check out Coursera. They have really good classes. They have a literacy ones, and yeah, take advantage of what we can. Oh, Amazon, you get your student discount too. So don't forget that. It's very good. All right, again, it's Sylvia, and acting vice chair for the assist. So let me read the questions while the slides are coming back up. So when planning out your courses, do you follow a specific pathway, or do you select classes based more or interest? If you could do it again, what route would you take when it comes selecting classes?
So I did follow a pathway. I followed the youth services pathway, but the pathways are kind of open. So I did vary a little bit. I took cataloging, which wasn't specifically in that pathway, but it was something that I knew would really help give me a strong foundation when I was out looking for jobs. And then part of why that worked for me to kind of focus on youth services and public librarianship, one, that's where my interest was, but two, I was working in an academic library for the bulk of the program. I only recently, well, last year, the start of the pandemic, got my new job working as a public librarian. So having that professional experience in an academic library really gave me a wider base. So I think that's something to think about. If you want to work in an academic library, but so far you've only volunteered in a public library, think about really tailoring the courses you take to kind of just expand your skills and give you a wide range of skills, so that when you're doing your job hunt or even writing your e-port, you have, you can demonstrate that you have that solid foundation. So if I could do it again, I think I'd do the same thing. I really loved taking all my youth services classes. I really enjoyed cataloging. And even though I don't work as a cataloger now, it's just so helpful for me in our daily operation of the library and even being able to search and do reference help. So yeah, definitely take what interests you, but take a look at the pathways too and see if anything might be a good fit for kind of rounding out your education and your skills.
Thank you.
I did not follow a pathway, and when I think back on it, I don't regret it because I was torn then and still am kind of torn about which path I want to take, whether it's going to be public librarianship or academic librarianship. So I took courses that kind of were from both realms, and then also just some of my personal interest. Now, the only thing I wish I could do a bit different maybe would be to maybe refine it a little bit more, maybe not follow a strict pathway, but just kind of be a little more focused. And if I had more time and resources, I would prioritize those first. And then the ones that I just had solely an interest in, if I had, the additional time and money to spend on it, then I would do those in the end. Because that was something that I really struggled with, where the amount of courses, especially the really subject specific and seminar specific courses that were so interesting to me, and I wanted to take it all. But then of course, time and money can only go so far. So that was something that I struggled with. And so I wish that maybe I did follow one a little bit more closely, for the sake of maybe making it a little bit easier for me to focus on which path I'm going to take professionally. But yeah, we'll see. I'm still pretty torn.
Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know that I would do anything differently. I wouldn't stress too much about pathways necessarily because SJSU has a lot of them and there's a lot of overlap between several. So like I started out on the digital services pathway and then ended up combining it with archives and manuscripts because I got interested in archives through an internship at the library, actually. But I still thought I was going to be an academic librarian or archivist. But I think so far what's been most useful that I'm glad that I took are like my technology related classes, like digital curation and preservation management and Raymond Dean's tech classes have all been really helpful. Even though I'm like a new archivist, a lot of the technology specific things having to do with digital preservation at work have fallen to me because I'm the only person who can communicate with donors and explain explain these things, because I'm the only one who has experience with it, which wasn't in my job description and I didn't expect I would be doing. So that's been really helpful. I think what I would recommend doing is start looking at job announcements for jobs that you would hypothetically apply for if you were graduating or had graduated already, and look at what skills they're looking for and start filling in the gaps with your coursework that you think you might need, and the sooner the better, I think. um, that would, I don't know, that was really helpful for me. I feel like when I started applying for jobs. So yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So for our next question is, do you find a professional mentor while in the program? If so, how did you connect with them?
So I didn't have a like an official formal professional mentor, but I did really benefit from guidance and just connecting with a lot of folks in the field. And I have to say, being active with the student groups was a huge benefit when it came to that. I don't think I mentioned this in my intro, but I was the social media coordinator for ASIS for 2 years. And as part of that, I got to go to the ASIS conference in Vancouver and actually met Dr. Hirsch, who was the director of the iSchool at that point. And so just like getting to talk to her in person and talk to her about career stuff was really amazing. And she's still the advisor for the ASIS student group, and just she's a really great resource. And then same with ALASC, I was a blogging assistant and social media coordinator for that student group. And Debbie, who's retiring this semester, is just such a beacon of knowledge and wealth of knowledge. And so having those connections and like having a kind of just a good way to connect with professors and faculty and administrators that way, I really recommend student groups just for bridging those connections. And then also at work, I was, like I mentioned, worked in an academic library, and a lot of the librarians there were SJSU graduates, and so they were able to give me advice on what they did. And then my current boss actually was the supervisor of the library I work now back when I was in high school, and I volunteered there. So, all these years later, I was able to connect with him and actually get hired onto this position. So basically everyone you meet in the library field, it's kind of a small world. So just try and meet as many people as you can and let them know that you're interested in building your career. And I feel like for me, at least, it kind of happened organically. I know there's some official mentorship avenues out there, but I found just kind of having a wide network was really helpful.
Excellent. Thank you.
I agree. I think that to take advantage of any of the networking opportunities as they happen organically is a huge recommendation, especially if you're already in some kind of library work or field. I did not have a official mentor either, but I definitely kind of looked towards, especially one supervisor in my current job who has just offered so much advice and who has, recommended me for a position and gave me the reference to the hiring manager. And so like I'm in all those processes now. And so without that help, I think it would be a lot harder. So just making those connections and maintaining them, I think is important if you're, outside of school. Inside of school, I do wish that I took more advantage of connecting with my peers more. I feel like I was too hesitant and too caught up in just my own day-to-day and trying to handle my workload from work and schoolwork that I didn't actually make genuine connections with my peers as much as I wanted to. But I was able to take one internship for a semester, and I was able to build a relationship with my intern supervisor. So that was, well, I don't really consider that an official mentorship. She did help me in a lot of ways. And so I think that if you can fit that into your schedule, those offer so many benefits. And they also create, if you're someone that's maybe a little more introverted or shy, it creates those, not only do you get course credit, but you also get to build some of that networking and more organically without having to overextend too much.
Yeah, I can't recommend internships highly enough. I didn't have a professional mentor either, but the people who have helped me the most were my internship supervisors who were willing to read over cover letters and, applications or just offer advice if I needed. And also, again, similar to what Violet said, the staff and the faculty at the library where I was working before while I was at San Jose State were also really helpful, because you have Like I was at an academic library, and I think it'd be the same in public, as you have people who work in all different kinds of services, access services, technical services, archives, and you know, administration. They're all there, and so it's a really great place to, you know, ask people more about what they do, ask for advice, get to see how different parts of the library work, and if there might be certain types of jobs that are interesting. Um, I let's see, during the program, like, it's really easy, I feel like, in an online program to not really get to know your professors. And a lot of, you know, don't have open office hours. There are a couple who do, and I really recommend going, and just asking questions and talking to them. I got an internship that way. So definitely take advantage if you can. And since we're talking about networking, if you go to a national conference, San Jose State always has like a gathering for all the alumni and the current students, and go. It's really, really fun to talk to other people from our school, and you know, some people you might know from like student organizations. They feed you, which is great, but it's just like a great chance to network and get to see where everyone, you know, is living and what they're doing. So recommend that as well.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, next we will have Kiri. She's our current secretary treasurer.
Yes, so now we're just going to open it up to questions for you. We will start reading off the questions in the chat as well to get some answers to those. But if you have a question, you can just pop on and ask it to our guests. Let's see in the chat. We have a question from Tobias. Did any of you use content from course discussions in your portfolios?
Yeah, more than I thought I would actually, because I usually wrote them like right before deadline. I was like, oh, it's just a discussion post. But actually, a lot of them have ended up being relevant. So definitely do save them.
Yeah, I definitely did as well. And a couple I realized too, like I was just sort of kicking myself that I didn't, you know, put more thought and energy into some of them, because I could see I'm like, oh, you were almost there, you know? And so I kind of wish that maybe I fleshed some out a little bit more, but I definitely did. And I think it really depends on the advisor that you have, because some might be a little more strict on it, on if you are going to use a discussion post, that it needs to be maybe a little bit lengthier or meatier, or maybe you have to have a couple of them. So just it's important to follow whatever your advisor's guidelines are.
Yeah, I ended up using more as well. And also I used my response to other people's posts too. And so save those as well. Just make sure, you know, in your e-portfolio, they require you to anonymize the other person. But so you have context for your reply, make sure to save both.
Okay, and we have a question from Martha Tran. She says, any tips on where to get experience besides volunteering in a library?
Internships and virtual too. That's how I did mine. And I think you can get a lot out of those too if you invest the energy into them.
And I would also say, if you're not currently working in a library, if you haven't before, really look at your transferable skills. I was a caterer for many, many years, and then I worked as an administrative assistant. And so I thought like, oh gosh, I don't really have a lot of library experience, but those planning and administrative assisting skills really helped with getting an academic library job. So, you know, apply for jobs. Don't be shy to kind of figure out how your transferable skills match up to what they're looking for, and see if you can get paid too. So that'd be my advice.
Yeah, I agree. I worked in a box office for 4 years, and so I had customer service experience, and that helped me get my job in the academic library working in access services, because I was working with people all the time. But yeah, definitely internships. I think, you know, with the pandemic, everything is switched to online. And so everyone's internships basically from the past year are all going to be virtual. And so I think that maybe if anyone's worried about how virtual internships are viewed now, they'll be, if the opinion was perhaps lower to some people, that's not going to be the case anymore. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I did a virtual internship as well. And it's, you know, it's a lot like doing school online. Is what you put into it is what you get out of it.
Great, thank you guys. So we have a couple of questions about the e-portfolio in the chat as well. Some people are having troubles with getting their competencies approved, even though they feel like they're putting a lot of in-depth information into their introductions. Yeah, so it looks like both the questions are kind of like how to sell yourself in print, and just if anyone has any tips for how to get the competencies approved.
I'll jump in real quick. If you are not part of the ePortfolio Facebook group, I would join or ask a classmate to add you. I can't remember if you need to be friends with someone and they need to add you. I think that's the case. But that is really helpful because the hard part is that like every advisor's different. And if you have access to what people have posted about said advisor on the Facebook group, it can make it a lot easier to understand what they're looking for. So it's hard to generalize about this because like, I know like Anthony Bernier, who's the research journal editor, faculty advisor, really likes concise competencies, whereas other professors required you to write like pages and pages for each one. So that's probably the best help you're gonna get. So I can't recommend that enough.
I agree. I'm in the group too, and I've found that to be super helpful because we only have experience with our one advisor, so I really can't say what others are looking for.
The advisor I had did give a couple of examples too. So if you have kind of a stickler advisor, I guess, that maybe isn't providing that for you, man, I feel for you, because that was really helpful for me in just kind of determining what she was looking for. And I guess I would really advise trying to, if you have a question on it, really being, transparent and direct with your advisor then, and ask what specifically are you looking for? Because if you're finding that they're not approving your competencies, I would really ask why and try to clearly outline that so you can change that. And then I was also part of several groups that I could see like several examples as well. So joining those Facebook groups, I think there was another like email listserv or something that I was on. But I would try to get an example of somebody who did get passing credit. I feel like that's really helpful to see, but it really does depend on what your advisor is looking for. So I would try to get a clear answer from them of what their expectation is.
So we had a question about saving things like discussion posts that aren't in Word. I can answer that one. I always save my discussion posts and any replies I do to other people along with their discussion posts to a like master Word document for the class throughout the semester, so that I know I'll always have access to those. So that would be my tip for saving stuff that's directly in Canvas. I don't know if anyone else has any other tips.
Yeah, I've also done the print to PDF and screenshots to save things that I don't have like a whole document for.
Mm-hmm.
I had an ongoing doc for sure. And then, but it was kind of split amongst my classes, and definitely screenshots, because that's always, straight to the point. And then you can just analyze it in your discussion of it.
Yeah, I think I just copied and pasted mine into a big Word doc. But yeah, for screenshots, I mean, like I said, things like libguides that really need to be seen. Use grab those while you still have access to them.
Thank you. So there was another question about how to get involved with the student groups. And I just like I would recommend just participating in panels like this. And then I think there's many Facebook groups for different iSchool groups. And I think there are many of our groups, not only us, we're looking for the next year's executive committee. So I'll recommend to reach out and participate in the different groups that way. Become members with them and just reach out to any of the members. If you go to each of the websites that each of the groups have, we'll be glad to help you. And you're welcome to email us directly from our website. And now the person who asked a question, and Chua can help you personally. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say don't be shy about nominating yourself for the executive boards. I was so afraid to do it. And then it ended up being a lot of fun and just, you know, a great group. I think Stephanie was on the board when I first started, and everybody was just so welcoming. You know, and we're all just in the program getting through it together. So, you know, executive board sounds like really official. And it is, there's work involved, but at the same time, like it's, you know, when else are you going to get the opportunity to do this and to have a group of fellow students to get involved with? So definitely, even if you're introverted, I would say if you feel like any part of you wants to nominate yourself, go for it.
Yeah, it was really surprising to me that like how few people apply to be on executive boards. I remember when we were trying to recruit, it was every year, you know, trying to fill positions, and we were talking with the other student chapters for the other organizations, you know, about how they were doing, and they were having the same problem. So even though the iSchool is really big, not that many people volunteer for this stuff. So yeah, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I'm really introverted too. Like if this was an in-person school, I never would have volunteered to be on the executive board. But it's really fun and it's not a whole lot of extra time, really. And you know, yeah, I was on the executive board with Violet and with Ariel as well. So yeah, it's you know, nice to see them, of course. And usually, you know, if you volunteer early in your time at the iSchool, you're with the same people for 1 or 2 years usually, which is, you know, much longer than you often spend with people in your classes. So it's a good way to build relationships with other students.
Definitely, that's very true. Yeah, and I can speak to that being an introvert, and it was like my first leadership experience, and I just jumped in, but it's been great. So I definitely recommend it to anyone, and just take that chance and try it out.
And you can use it for your e-port, so it's a win-win.
All right, are there any other questions? Looks like we have a lot of questions. Oh, this is interesting. Did prepping the e-portfolio help any of you get a job?
Yes, I think so, because it in doing the e-portfolio, you have to think about what skills you have and what you've already done, and they'll often ask about your experience and examples of how you've demonstrated that experience. And in the e-portfolio, you have to have already told your advisor how you did those things. So I think it's a good reflection or time to reflect on what you did during school. And, you know, if you're able to incorporate internship and professional work in there, so much the better. It's easier to recall in an interview.
I agree. I'm hoping it'll land me a job. I'm in the process of it, but yeah, I totally agree that it put it in a nice succinct way. And I have it even because I have mine on a Google Sites. A couple of the pages I could even link through my resume to like be direct evidence for some of my skills. So yeah.
Thank you. There's another question. I know Christine raised her hand, but there's not one question about any MARA courses you recommend as a foundation to do intern work for archiving.
You know, I wasn't on the MARA path, so I can't answer specifically, but I would say for interning, I mean, obviously just the basic stuff. Archiving is a very theoretically based field, so making sure that you understand like the terminology and the history of archiving is really important. And then I would say if you can take any sort of digital preservation or digital archiving class, that is going to help no matter what it is. And it depends on what you are thinking of doing. If you're really interested in records management, that's like a whole other set of courses. So consider like, go look at the job postings and see what you might be interested in. Because if you know like for sure that you do or do not want to do records management, that will really help you tailor your coursework for archiving.
Thank you, Stephanie. I don't know if Christine, she raised her hand. I don't know if does she still have another question?
Actually, that's my question. I just wanted to ask it really quick. You answered it. Thank you.
We skipped a question. Sorry about that. Sarah Wilson asked, are the career services still available after you graduate?
I do
I
think
think
some
for
of
a bit.
them are. Yeah, I think that I'm not sure if it's just iSchool specific or if all the San Jose resources are available, but I think that there's quite a number of them that are available to alumni, and I'm not sure there's like a cutoff for that. I would reach out to Jill Cleese, who's the iSchool career advisor, and ask about what tools will be available.
Handshake for sure is still available after you graduate. So if you're looking for a job, just make sure you continuously update your skills and they'll send you relevant postings. But also like, just so you know, it's mostly California job based. So if you're looking to, you know, work outside of that state, it's a good resource, but also just be aware that it has kind of a geographic focus.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question in the chat from Dominic. As what competency was the hardest for you to find evidence for?
So I'm not done, so I can't say. I might in a week or two be having a meltdown regretting what I'm about to say. But so far it's been kind of easier than I thought. And I think part of that goes back to what I was saying about taking a wide range of classes. Because my advisor, this might be different depending on who you end up with, but my advisor requires 1 to 4 pieces of evidence. And I've been able to find like easily off the top of my head at least 2 or 3 for each one. So far, so good.
Man, I'm trying to remember, and I know I struggled for sure on a couple. Maybe it was I can't remember. I feel like I definitely chose the path of bouncing around, and I started with the ones that I felt like I could easily recall information and had stuff. But that's a good question. I'm going to see if I can. I'm actually pulling mine up online right now to see if I could remember. I feel like I blocked it out or something.
Yeah, mine went away with my Trello boards. I think it was Comp O. I had to look this up while Violet and Brittany were talking because I couldn't remember specifically, but it's the one, articulate your understanding of what it means to contribute to the cultural, economic, educational, and social well-being of our global communities. And I think that one is one that people, at least on the Facebook group, seem to have struggled with as well, because, you know, it's great if you did librarians across borders or you know, some kind of program that has an international focus, but I think a lot of people don't. And there's some classes that address this specifically, but I know a lot of people don't necessarily take them. I think that was the one that I struggled with the most. And gosh, I wish I could share more about what I filled or what I wrote for this, but I honestly can't remember. But my advisor wouldn't let us do our competencies out of order. We had to do it three or four at a time, starting with A. So this one was one of the last ones that I did. So again, your advisor will determine how you are able to approach your e-portfolio.
That one was tough. I'm remembering it was O for me as well. And something that I found that was really helpful was looking at the web conferences that the iSchool they do every year, every semester. And I was able to find a couple that could satisfy that competency. So I would look at that because there's usually some kind of conference or something that goes on that has sort of a global component. So.
And ASIS is an international organization. So if you get an ASIS membership and maybe sit in on some of the webinars, either from the student group or from the actual international organization, that's a great way to kind of dip your toe in that area too.
Okay. Let's see.
Thank you. I know there were a couple of questions about how to join the executive committee or how to self-nominate. So I just put links to the form to self-nominate, and then a link to our website on how to join and to get more information. And any questions you might have, please just send us an email. We're glad to either connect with us or connect with other student chapters. Thank you.
And I see Christopher asked about anonymizing your evidence. I think it was mentioned to lock out other students' names for privacy. Okay, Robin says, I'm interested in working in music libraries. Is there anything you would recommend in terms of classes to take, skills to develop, etc., that would be helpful for working in a music library? So this must be for Stephanie.
I'm gonna assume you're already a musician. We do have some people in the music division who aren't musicians because we get a lot of we're performing arts, so we get theater and dance and a lot of collections that don't consist primarily of music. But I didn't take any specific classes for music at San Jose State. I think they offered music librarianship once, but it was like in every other year sort of thing. And I was actually looking at moving away from music. This is the job that I have now was the only music job that I applied for. But one thing I would recommend that I've heard other people recommend is that if you're interested in music cataloging, one, again, make sure you're a musician. The head of our bibliographic access section at the in the music division at the library likes to say, like, I can teach people to catalog, but I don't want to teach them how to read music. That's like years of other experience you need to have. But the University of North Texas, I think it's an every other summer, offers like a crash course in music cataloging. And I know a couple of our catalogers have taken that course because you don't usually get that kind of coursework specifically in library school. And if that's the route you want to take, that's a great way to get experience and to get the sort of like specialized knowledge you're going to need. Also, if you speak another language, especially Italian, German, or French, or Russian, that will help you a lot in music libraries as well.
Okay, thank you. All right. I lost the question. Oh, okay. This is for Violet from Tobias. Can you compare the SJSU ASIS and the ALA student chapter organizations in terms of career direction? What are some differences?
So I think a big difference is just who you're serving with in terms of like dynamic and amount of time commitment and things like that. So that part, really is just kind of depends on who else self-nominates. But in terms of like your career, it's really just the focus. So ALASC is the student chapter of the American Library Association, so it's very broad. It's, you know, wanting to work in public libraries like I did was a good outlet for me to take to. ASIS is a little bit more research-based. It is international, where American Library Association obviously is focused on the US. So really it's just kind of is what you're interested in. If you're interested in libraries versus if you're interested in a little bit more of that information science aspect. So one thing that I really enjoyed about being in ASIS was just hearing from the speakers on things that weren't where I was going professionally. So things like digital asset management and, you know, more information science focused, really kind of a different world from public librarianship. So for me, that was appealing because I wanted to kind of expand my horizons and just, you know, learn from something I wouldn't get the opportunity to learn from in the workplace. But if that's something that really appeals to you and that's what you want to work in, that's something to think about too. So whether you're, you know, trying to gain more skills or just curious about what other folks are doing, really is just kind of up to the group to decide what you want to do that year too. So I would say, you know, whatever kind of look at the past events that they've done and whatever kind of sparks your interest, go in that direction.
Great, thank you, Violet. And then we have another question for Stephanie. Indira is wondering if the archival department at the Library of Congress is large and what your interview was like.
I told her actually that I'm going to email her more about this because we're going to run out of time. Just real quickly, let's see. So the first part of the question was, so every division, almost every division has their own archivist. So this is sort of a new thing for the LOC. And so we're like in the music division, we're under this bigger directorate called Special Collections. And so like conservation is also in there. I think manuscripts is, and then we're under this even bigger umbrella that doesn't even have a name, just called library services, and that's every division that has a reading room. So that includes like the Hispanic division, prints and photographs. Oh, they're in special collections too, I forgot. So yeah, just and the ones who are sort of outside of that are the law library and the copyright office. So it's like this giant thing. So it's sort of we're organized sort of subject specifically at the library. But we do get together for professional development opportunities. Even during the pandemic, we've been meeting virtually and people will talk about what they have been processing and projects and fun things they encountered. So yeah, that's how it works. It's a little bit different than you would find in like an academic or public library where you're going to be more generalized.
Great, thank you. And then Sarah is asking if 3 to 4 pieces of evidence is the general rule, and do advisors offer more of an explanation for each competency than what's on the website? Because some of them can be a little vague when you just look at the competencies listed on the iSchool site.
I think it really depends on your advisor. Like I said, mine is 1 to 4 pieces. So it really depends on how strong your evidence is and all of that. And also my advisor didn't provide any additional info about the competencies, but I learned a lot more and got some documents from the ePort group that fleshed it out a little bit more.
So we have a question from Dominic asking if there's any courses you recommend that are valuable for the portfolio or for professional development. I think some of that would be based off what your career interests are, but I don't know if there's any classes that you guys would suggest that added valuable competencies to your ePort.
I think tech tools was great, and I wish I took more of that with Dean, I think, and Cotton. I would definitely recommend those just professionally. I think that those are skills that you can use in a wide variety of ways, and then can definitely use it in your ePort.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, cataloging wasn't something that I really did a lot of at work, so it was really helpful to have that background from school.
Yeah, same for cataloging. It wasn't really something I was interested in, but I think it specifically addressed a competency, so that was helpful. I'm trying to remember. I think there was like digital curation I used a lot, surprisingly, for a lot of competencies. I think that was a class where we did web archiving, and that also fulfilled some of that more information management specific competencies. So I guess, yeah, look around and see which ones you have a lot of holes in. I know some people, like I have a music ed background, so I had education experience, but one that a lot of people seem to struggle with is I think it's J, but I can't remember specifically. And then they took out I and it got, I don't know. But the one that addresses instruction was one that people who don't have any instruction or teaching experience seem to struggle with. So that's, I think, one that I would keep in mind. I didn't take that class, but it's a competency that you might need to take a class to fulfill.
Oh, that one.
Okay, thanks, Violet.
That one I know you can fulfill it with being a peer mentor for Info 203. So that's something else to consider. Okay, are there any other questions?
I was just put in the chat, how much is a membership to assist for students?
I think it's 45. I'm pretty sure they just raised it to $5. So I know it was 40, but I feel like it's 45.
Yes, so let me answer that question. So the membership for the professional assist is $45, and automatically you become a member of the student chapter. Okay,
You can
so
also, oh, sorry. And so you can also pay monthly, like $3.48 or something every month.
And if you're in Info 200 this semester, you get to pick a professional organization, and the iSchool pays for your first year. So you could choose this.
Yes, and then when you join the professional organization, you get a lot of free classes from the professional organization. So you get a lot of benefit. They have, and then you get a lot of student information. I think with the next slide, we're going to talk about it. So thank you, very timely, Sarah. Thank you. Yeah.
Here's it. I pulled it up so we could talk about it. So yeah, with an assist membership, you get free, like they have classes every month, a few, and you can go to all of those for free. You get a subscription to a journal that they send to your address every month, and it has a lot of different research articles they've been collecting, and it's international, so it's articles that people have written all over the world. You can get published on their blog. You get discounts on a lot of the things that Assist offers, and you get connected. They have like different special interest groups. So with a membership, you can be connected to, if you have specific interests, they have a whole bunch of different groups, and they send out, like, you can have discussions and chats. And I don't know if anyone wants to add anything else.
Is it true that you don't necessarily have to supply evidence from a class? It can be like a webinar or something like that. Is that true?
Yes.
Did any of you guys use assist classes in your ePortfolio?
Yeah, I definitely am. What different events that we hosted, just my service on the board, and then it's going to be my Comp O evidence, especially since I was able to go to that conference in Canada.
Yeah, is there a you can tell I'm the one who graduated like the furthest time ago. If there's any leadership or requirement or a competency that fulfills it really easily. I know that also, like I said, I joined the Student Research Journal and I use that a lot for my ePort as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, I think you have to have taken 285 in order to apply, but I did get a lot out of that experience and a lot for the ePortfolio.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we have thank you everyone for coming tonight. We don't want to take up too much of your time. I think we had some information about elections coming up, or
yes, as you know, every year, every executive committee for all the student chapters, they change. Some positions come open. And so you're welcome to apply and check us out. I'm putting on the chat again our nomination form or how to join. There's one. And also I'm putting the form for self-nominate yourself. I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask, which is not helping. There you go. So again, all the positions will be open, and then some of us will run again. And there's nothing to fear. All of us, you know, Stephanie, Violet, and Brittany have been members of ASIS, you know, and they, I think I've really enjoyed it very much. It's having a great experience. You meet a lot of people. We also get together with other student groups. We get to meet leaderships, and then you get great network. You meet all, we have our own collaborative groups. So yeah, we encourage you to join any group, I would say, any of them. But of course, come to ASIST. All the research and technology. So you are very welcome. You're working with us.
Thank you. And thank you so much to our panelists for taking time out of their day to come back and talk to some iSchoolers. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you guys. And even I learned a lot. It was so interesting. I hope that everyone enjoyed this event and learned a lot. If you can, please complete the survey. It's being posted in the chat about this event. We would really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for coming, and have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh, there, okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Katie.
Thank you, Sarah, for coming. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Dominic, for joining us.
Good to see you, Katie. Thanks for coming.
Did we stop recording?